Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The massive colony ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now. Behind him, 50,000 people slept in their pods, dreaming of their new home on planet Kepler 442b. These were farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers who had left Earth to build something better among the stars. Jake was proud of his ship and his crew. Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez kept the engines running perfectly. Communications Officer Dan Carter handled all the messages from Earth and monitored space around them. Security Chief Amy Thompson made sure everyone stayed safe during the long journey. They were good people, and Jake trusted them with his life. The bridge was quiet in the early morning shift. Most of the crew was sleeping, and the ship's computers handled the basic flying. Jake liked these peaceful moments. In a few more months, they would reach their new world and begin the hard work of building a colony. But right now, everything was calm. That peace ended when Dan Carter's equipment started making loud warning sounds. "Captain," Dan said, his voice tight with worry, "I'm picking up massive energy readings ahead of us. Something big is coming." Jake moved to Dan's station and looked at the screen. Dozens of red dots were appearing on their sensors. Each dot was the size of a warship, and there were hundreds of them. "How many ships?" Jake asked. Dan's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "At least 300, sir. Maybe more. They're arranged in a battle formation, and they're heading straight for us." Lisa Rodriguez hurried onto the bridge, still putting on her uniform jacket. "Captain, our engines are detecting massive gravitational distortions. Whatever those ships are, they're using technology we've never seen before." Amy Thompson arrived next, her hand resting on her weapon. "Sir, should I wake the security teams?" Jake thought for a moment. The Liberty was a colony ship, not a warship. They had some basic defenses, but nothing that could fight hundreds of alien vessels. "Not yet, Amy. Let's see what they want first." The alien fleet moved closer. Through the viewing screen, Jake could see their ships clearly now. They were huge, dark vessels with strange designs that hurt to look at. The largest ship was twice the size of the Liberty, and it was moving to the front of the fleet. "Captain," Dan said, "they're sending us a message. It's coming through on all frequencies." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The viewing screen changed from showing space to showing an alien face. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its words came through a machine that translated them into English. "I am High Arbitrator Zexthil of the Hegemony Fleet," the alien said. Its voice was cold and full of authority. "You are humans from the planet called Earth. You will stop your ship immediately and prepare to receive our commands." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the U.S. Liberty. We are peaceful colonists traveling to an uninhabited world. We mean no harm to anyone." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful, yes. We have studied your species. You are violent, unpredictable creatures who destroy everything you touch. Your kind is not welcome in civilized space." Behind the alien, Jake could see other creatures of different species. Some looked like insects, others like sea creatures, and some were shapes he couldn't understand. All of them were watching the humans with the same cold hatred. "The hegemony has controlled this sector of space for over 10,000 of your years," Zexthil continued. 12 advanced species work together to maintain order and peace. We have removed many dangerous races from the galaxy. Now it is your turn." Lisa whispered to Jake, "Sir, their weapons are charging." "All of them." Zexthil held up one of his 4 hands. On the screen behind him appeared images of dead worlds, burned cities, and floating wreckage. These were species who refused to obey our commands. The Corvani thought they were strong. The Veltar believed they were clever. The Daxians tried to hide. All of them are gone now. Jake felt his crew moving closer behind him. Dan's hands were shaking as he worked his controls. Lisa was calculating something on her tablet. Amy was watching the alien ships through the sensors, counting their weapons. "You will turn your ship around and return to your home system immediately," Zexthil said. "You will tell your leaders that humanity is forbidden from leaving Earth. Any human ship that crosses into hegemony space will be destroyed without warning. And if we refuse?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. The aliens' 4 eyes focused on him like weapons. "Then you will die. All of you. You're 50,000 colonists will become space dust, and your world will receive a message about what happens to species that disobey the hegemony." The screen showed more images now. Planets with their surfaces burned clean. Space stations cut in half by energy weapons. Ships like the Liberty torn apart and scattered across the void. "You have 72 of your hours to decide," Zexthil said. "Turn around and live, or continue forward and die. Those are your only choices." The transmission ended, and the viewing screen returned to showing the alien fleet. The ships had spread out around the Liberty, forming a cage of weapons and armor. There was no way to run, no way to hide, and no way to fight. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was still calculating, her face pale but determined. Dan was recording everything, making sure Earth would know what happened here. Amy was already thinking about how to defend the ship, even though they all knew it was impossible. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "their ships are more advanced than anything we have. Their weapons could destroy us in seconds. Their shields could stop every weapon we carry. How long until the other colonies hear about this?" Jake asked Dan. "If we send a message now, it will reach Earth in 6 months," Dan replied. "The other colony ships won't know for years." Jake walked to the viewing screen and stared at the alien fleet. Hundreds of ships, thousands of years of technology, and the power to end human expansion with a simple command. Behind him, 50,000 people slept peacefully, trusting him to keep them safe. But Jake was thinking about more than just the people on his ship. He was thinking about Earth, about the children who dreamed of walking on other worlds, about the explorers who looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. He was thinking about humanity's future and whether it would be spent cowering in one small system or reaching for something greater. "Sir," Amy said, "what are your orders?" Jake turned away from the viewing screen and looked at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for a dangerous mission because they believed in something bigger than themselves. They had left comfortable lives on Earth to help build humanity's future among the stars. Now that future was in danger, and Jake had to decide what it was worth. "Get me a connection to the entire ship," he said. "It's time to wake everyone up. They need to know what we're facing." The next 72 hours would determine whether humanity would bow to alien masters or stand tall in the face of impossible odds. Jake Morrison stood in the main assembly hall of the U.E.S. Liberty, looking out at thousands of faces. The colonists had been awakened from their sleep pods and gathered together to hear his announcement. Children sat next to their parents, elderly. Couples held hands, and young adults whispered nervously to each other. These people had trusted him to lead them to a new world, and now he had to tell them they might all die instead. "Friends," Jake began, his voice carrying through the speakers to every part of the ship, "we have encountered an alien fleet. They call themselves the hegemony, and they have given us an ultimatum. We must turn back to Earth and never return. To space, or they will destroy us all." The hall erupted in worried voices. Parents pulled their children closer. Some people started crying. Others looked angry. Jake raised his hand for silence. "I want you to know that I will not make this decision alone," he continued. "This ship carries 50,000 human beings, and each of you has a voice in what happens next. But before we vote, I want you to understand what we're truly choosing between. Dr. Kevin Walsh stood up from his seat in the front row. Kevin was the mission's chief scientist, a man who had spent his whole life studying the stars. Captain, what exactly did these aliens tell us? Jake activated the main screen behind him, showing the recording of Zexthil's message. The alien's cold voice filled the hall as he explained that humans were too violent and dangerous for space travel. The images of destroyed worlds and dead civilizations made everyone go quiet. When the message ended, a woman named Linda Brooks raised her hand. She was a teacher who had brought her 2 young sons on the mission. Captain, if we go back to Earth, will these aliens leave us alone? They say they will, Jake replied. But they also said they would be watching us. Any human ship that leaves, our solar system will be destroyed. An older man named Paul Garcia stood up. Paul had been a Marine before becoming a farmer. So they want to make us prisoners in our own system. Keep us locked up like animals in a cage. That's right, Jake said. They believe we're too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. Lisa Rodriguez stepped forward from where she had been, standing with the other crew members. Captain, I've been looking at their ships with our sensors. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their weapons could turn us into dust in seconds. Their shields could stop anything we throw at them. A young engineer named Betty Clark raised her voice from the crowd. So what chance do we have if we fight? Lisa looked uncomfortable. Honestly, almost none. Maybe none at all. The hall fell. Silent. Parents looked at their children, thinking about their futures. The elderly thought about the grandchildren they would never see grow up. The young adults thought about dreams that would never come true. Then a voice spoke from the back of the hall. My grandfather died on Omaha Beach. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Danny White, a construction worker from Texas. He was a big man with rough hands and a gentle voice. My grandfather could have stayed home, Danny continued, walking slowly toward the front. Could have found a safe job in a factory. Could have lived a long, comfortable life. But he got on a boat and sailed across an ocean to fight people who wanted to take away other people's freedom. Danny stopped in the middle of the hall and looked around at all the faces watching him. He didn't go because he hated Germans. He went because he loved Americans. He loved freedom. He loved the idea that people should be able to choose their own lives. An elderly woman named Rose Martinez stood up. My husband died in Vietnam, fighting for the same idea. My son died in Afghanistan. They died so their children could live free. More people began standing. A doctor named Carl Johnson, whose parents had escaped from Cuba. A programmer named Susan Lee, whose grandparents had survived the Holocaust. A mechanic named Tony Romano, whose family had come to America with nothing but hope. Amy Thompson stepped forward. I served 3 tours in Iraq before joining this mission. I saw friends die fighting against people who wanted to control how others lived. The enemies we faced there weren't as strong as these aliens, but the principle is the same. Jake watched as more and more colonists stood up. These weren't soldiers or politicians. They were ordinary people who had chosen to leave everything behind for a chance at something better. They were teachers and farmers and engineers who had risked everything for their children's future. Dr. Kevin Walsh raised his hand again. Captain, I've been analyzing their communication signals. I think I understand something important about these aliens. What is it, Kevin? Kevin activated his tablet and projected his findings onto the main screen. Every species in their hegemony has one thing in common. They all gave up without fighting. The Corvani surrendered after seeing the alien fleet. The Veltar tried to negotiate. The Daxians tried to hide. None of them actually fought back. Dan Carter looked up from his equipment. What does that mean? It means they've never faced a species like us, Kevin said. They've never encountered people who would rather die than live as slaves. They don't understand the concept of choosing principles over survival. Lisa Rodriguez had been working on her tablet during the discussion. Now she looked up with excitement in her eyes. Captain, I think we might have more options than just fighting or surrendering. What do you mean? Lisa smiled for the first time since the aliens had appeared. This ship wasn't built as a warship, but it was built to survive anything space could throw at us. We have mining lasers that could cut through asteroid fields. We have magnetic manipulators that could move 1,000-ton rocks. We have fusion reactors that could power a small city. Amy Thompson caught on immediately. You're saying we could turn our tools into weapons? More than that, Lisa said. We could turn our entire ship into something they've never seen before. They expect us to either run away or fight like a normal military vessel. But we're not normal, and this isn't a normal ship. Danny White spoke up again. So what are you saying we should do? Jake looked around the hall at all the faces watching. These people had left Earth because they believed in something better. They had sacrificed comfortable lives for their children's futures. They had chosen hope over safety. I'm saying we send those aliens a message, Jake said. We tell them exactly what human beings are made of. The crowd began talking excitedly. Parents hugged their children. The elderly smiled with pride. The young adults stood straighter. Rose Martinez raised her voice above the noise. What message should we send, Captain? Jake thought about his grandfather, who had worked in coal mines to feed his family. He thought about his father, who had joined NASA to reach for the stars. He thought about all the humans throughout history who had faced impossible odds and chosen to stand up anyway. We tell them that we are human beings, Jake said. We don't kneel to tyrants, and we don't abandon our dreams because someone bigger tells us to stop. If they want to prevent us from reaching the stars, they'll have to go through us first. The hall erupted in cheers. 50,000 people who had come to space seeking freedom had just chosen to fight for it instead. Dan Carter's hands moved quickly over his communication controls as he prepared to send humanity's message to the alien fleet. Behind him, Captain Jake Morrison stood with his arms crossed, watching the hegemony ships on the main screen. The aliens had been waiting for 3 days, expecting the humans to either surrender or try to run away. They were about to get a surprise. Captain, I have an open channel to their flagship, Dan reported. Send it, Jake said. Dan activated the transmission. His voice was calm and clear as he spoke into the microphone. High Arbitrator Zexthul, this is the UES Liberty. We have considered your ultimatum, and we have our answer. On the alien flagship, Zexthul appeared on their screen. His 4 eyes were focused and alert, expecting to hear words of surrender. We are human beings, Dan continued. We don't kneel to tyrants, and we don't abandon our dreams because someone bigger tells us to. You want to stop us from reaching the stars? You'll have to go through us. The alien's expression changed from confidence to confusion. Behind him, other creatures from different species began talking in excited voices. None of them could understand what they had just heard. You choose death over submission? Zexthul asked. This makes no sense. You cannot win against our fleet. Maybe not, Jake said, stepping into view of the camera. But we'll die as free human beings, not as slaves. The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. Through the viewing screen, they could see the alien ships beginning to move into attack positions. Lisa Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. All hands, this is Chief Engineer Rodriguez. Operation Conversion is now active. All teams report to your assigned stations. Throughout the Liberty, thousands of colonists were already hard at work. In the cargo bays, teams led by Danny White were converting mining lasers into ship weapons. The massive tools that were meant to cut through asteroids were being rewired to fire at enemy vessels in the lower decks. Betty Clark was leading a group of engineers in modifying the magnetic cargo manipulators. These powerful devices could move 1,000-ton chunks of metal and rock. Now they were being turned into weapons that could grab enemy ships and throw them around like toys. Dr. Kevin Walsh was in the computer center with a team of programmers. They were working on something that would surprise the aliens even more than improvised weapons. Kevin had discovered that the hegemony used a single communication frequency to coordinate their entire fleet. If they could disrupt that signal, the alien ships would lose their ability to work together. Amy Thompson was organizing the ship's defenses. She had discovered that many of the colonists were former military personnel. There was Carol Adams, who had been a Navy pilot. There was Frank Miller, who had served in Special Forces. There was Helen Davis, who had been an Air Force engineer. These people had come to space to build a new life, but they still remembered how to fight. "Captain," Lisa's voice came through the speakers again. "Conversion is complete. All systems are ready." Jake looked at his crew. Anne was monitoring the alien fleet's movements. Amy was coordinating with the security teams throughout the ship. Lisa was managing the newly converted weapon systems. "Here they come," Dan announced. The alien fleet began moving toward the Liberty. Hundreds of dark ships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charging with deadly energy. The largest ships moved to the front, while smaller vessels spread out to surround the human vessel. "Lisa, are you ready?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. All weapons are charged and ready to fire." Jake took a deep breath. In a few moments, they would either make history or become history. "Fire everything we have." The Liberty's converted mining lasers shot out bright beams of energy. The magnetic manipulators hurled chunks of metal at the alien ships. Every weapon they could create was firing at once, turning the peaceful colony ship into a makeshift warship. The aliens were caught completely off guard. They had expected the humans to either surrender or try to run away. They had never imagined that a civilian vessel would transform itself into a fighting ship and attack a superior force. Several alien ships took damage from the mining lasers. The magnetic manipulators grabbed two smaller vessels and smashed them. Together, chunks of metal crashed into alien hulls, causing explosions and fires. But the hegemony fleet was still much stronger. Their return fire lit up space with deadly energy beams. The Liberty's hull began taking hits, and damage alarms started ringing throughout the ship. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Amy reported. "Emergency teams are responding. Reactor output dropping." Lisa announced, "The aliens are targeting our power systems." Jake grabbed his communication device. "All hands, this is the captain. We knew this would be difficult. Keep fighting. Show them what humans are made of." In the computer center, Dr. Kevin Walsh was ready to try his plan. "Captain, I'm going to attempt to disrupt their communication network. It might work, or it might make them angrier." "Do it," Jake ordered. Kevin activated his program. Suddenly, the alien communication frequency was flooded with human voices. The sounds of Earth filled the network. Music from every culture on the planet. Poetry from great writers. Speeches from leaders who had fought for freedom. The chaotic, emotional, passionate sounds of humanity crashed into the aliens' orderly communication system. The effect was immediate. The perfect formation of the alien fleet began to break apart. Ships collided with each other as their coordination failed. Some vessels stopped firing while others shot in random directions. "It's working," Dan shouted. "Their fleet is losing coordination." Jake saw their chance. "Lisa, take us into their formation. Use our size as a weapon." The Liberty was much larger than most of the alien ships. Lisa pushed the engines to maximum power and aimed the massive colony vessel directly at the enemy fleet. The aliens scattered in panic as the huge ship charged toward them. "They don't understand us," Amy observed, watching the alien ships flee from their path. "They can't predict what we'll do next." The battle became a running fight through a nearby asteroid field. The humans used their knowledge of mining and construction to turn the floating rocks into weapons. They blasted asteroids apart and used the magnetic manipulators to hurl the pieces at alien ships. The aliens, despite their advanced technology, found themselves confused and outmaneuvered. They were used to fighting organized military fleets, not creative colonists who could turn anything into a weapon. Carl Adams was flying one of the Liberty's construction shuttles, using its cutting tools to slice through alien hull plating. Frank Miller had rigged explosive charges that turned mining equipment into bombs. Helen Davis was using her engineering knowledge to target the aliens' weak points, but the cost was terrible. The Liberty was taking massive damage. Parts of the ship were on fire. Entire sections had lost life support. Many of the colonists who had chosen to fight were now dead or wounded. In the medical bay, Dr. Elizabeth Hayes was treating the injured while giving speeches over the ship's communication system. "We came to space to build something better," she said as she worked on a wounded engineer. "Today we're proving that humanity deserves its place among the stars." The battle raged for hours. The Liberty was slowly being destroyed, but the alien fleet was also suffering. Several hegemony ships had been destroyed or disabled. The perfect order of their formation was completely broken. As the fighting continued, something unexpected began to happen. Some of the alien species in the hegemony fleet started to hesitate. They had never seen anything like human determination. They began to wonder if their own surrender to the hegemony had been the right choice. High Arbitrator Zexthel appeared on the communication screen again. His 4 eyes were filled with anger and confusion. "Why do you continue to fight? You cannot win. You will all die for nothing." Jake looked at the alien leader with calm determination. "We're not dying for nothing. We're dying for something you could never understand. We're dying for the right to be free." The battle was approaching its final moments, and Jake knew what he had to do. The U's Liberty was dying. Jake Morrison could feel his ship falling apart around him as he stood on the damaged bridge. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The air tasted of smoke and burning metal. Through the cracked viewing screen, he could see the hegemony flagship moving closer for the final attack. "Captain," Lisa Rodriguez called out from her engineering station, blood running down her face from a head wound. "The fusion reactors are critically damaged. We have maybe 10 minutes before they fail completely." "Hull breaches on every deck," Amy Thompson reported, her voice hoarse from shouting orders through the smoke. "We've lost life support in sections 4 through 7. Emergency power is failing." Dan Carter was still at his communication post, even though half his equipment was destroyed. "Sir, I'm getting reports from all over the ship. We've lost over 3,000 people. Many more wounded." Jake closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about all the families who had trusted him to lead them to a new world. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never see their kids take first steps on an alien planet. Dreams that would die with him in the cold emptiness of space. But when he opened his eyes again, his voice was steady and strong. "Lisa, I need you to do something for me. Can you overload the fusion reactors in a controlled way?" Lisa looked at him with understanding in her eyes. "You mean turn the ship into a bomb?" "Yes, sir, I can do that." "It would create an explosion visible from light years away." "How big of an explosion?" "Big enough to destroy their flagship and take half their fleet with us." Jake activated the ship's communication system one final time. His voice reached every surviving person on the Liberty. My friends, we have fought well today. We have shown these aliens what human beings are truly made of. Now we have one last choice to make. In the medical bay, Dr. Elizabeth Hayes was still treating wounded colonists while listening to her captain's words. Danny White was helping evacuate people from the damaged sections. Betty Clark was trying to repair critical systems even as the ship fell apart around her. We can use our dying ship as a weapon, Jake continued. We can take their flagship and thousands of their warriors with us. We can hurt them so badly that they never forget what happens when you threaten humanity. Throughout the ship, the surviving colonists looked at each other. Parents held their children. The elderly sat quietly, thinking about the lives they had lived. Young adults faced their first real test of character. Carol Adams spoke up from where she was piloting a damaged shuttle. Captain, what's the other choice? Jake looked at the alien flagship on his screen. High Arbitrator Zexthal was probably preparing to finish them off, expecting these stubborn humans to finally break under the pressure. The other choice is to show them something they've never seen before, Jake said. We could have destroyed their flagship. We have the power to take thousands of their lives, but we don't have to. We can choose to be better than our enemies. Dr. Kevin Walsh understood immediately. You want to die as an example, not as destroyers. That's right, Jake said. We can show them what humans really are. We don't fight because we hate what stands before us. We fight because we love what stands behind us. The communication channel fell silent as people throughout the ship thought about this choice. They could go out in a blaze of destruction, taking their enemies with them, or they could die in a way that proved their principles were stronger than their anger. Rose Martinez, the elderly woman whose husband and son had died in wars, was the first to speak. Captain, I vote for the example. My family died to protect people, not to kill enemies. Danny White's voice came next. My grandfather stormed those beaches to free people, not to destroy them. I vote for the example, too. One by one voices throughout the ship spoke up. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes voted for the example. Frank Miller, the former Special Forces soldier, voted for the example. Even Carol Adams, who had been fighting alien ships just minutes ago, voted for the example. In the end, it was unanimous. 50,000 people had left to build something better, and even facing death, they chose to be better. Jake opened a communication channel to the alien flagship. High Arbitrator Zexthal appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes expecting to see broken humans begging for mercy. Arbitrator, Jake said calmly, we could have taken you with us. We had the power to destroy your flagship and take thousands of your lives, but we chose not to. We chose to show you what humans really are. Zexthal looked confused. Behind him, other alien leaders were talking in excited voices, trying to understand what the human was saying. We don't fight because we hate you, Jake continued. We fight because we love our freedom, our children, and our dreams. We fight because some things are worth dying for. Lisa Rodriguez began the process of overloading the fusion reactors. But instead of directing the explosion toward the alien fleet, she aimed it away from them, toward empty space. Captain, Dan Carter said, I'm broadcasting our final message to Earth. They'll know what happened here. Jake nodded and turned back to the alien leader on the screen. Tell your people about today, Arbitrator. Tell them about the species that chose principles over survival. Tell them about the humans who stood tall. The Liberty's fusion reactors reached critical overload. The explosion that followed lit up the entire star system like a new sun. The dying colony ship became a beacon of light that could be seen across the galaxy, a brilliant star that announced to the universe that humanity had been here and had chosen to die free. The hegemony fleet was left floating in space, watching the beautiful explosion fade away. High Arbitrator Zexthal stared at the spot where the human ship had been, unable to process what he had witnessed. In the following hours, something unprecedented began to happen throughout the alien fleet. The Vel-Tar, a species that had been conquered by the hegemony 300 years ago, began talking among themselves about what they had seen. For the first time in centuries, they started to question their submission. The Corvani delegation held emergency meetings discussing whether their own surrender had been necessary. The Daxians, who had tried to hide from the hegemony and failed, wondered if they should have fought instead. By the end of the week, 3 species had declared independence from the hegemony. By the end of the month, 7 more had joined them. The perfect order that had controlled this sector of space for thousands of years was crumbling, not because of superior weapons, but because one species had shown others what courage looked like. The message from the Liberty reached Earth 6 months later. President Linda Carter stood before a gathered crowd in Washington, reading the final transmission from Captain Jake Morrison and his crew. "Today, we launch new colony ships," she announced. "They carry the names of every person who died aboard. The Liberty." Captain Jake Morrison, Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez, Communications Officer Dan Carter, Security Chief Amy Thompson, and 49,996 brave colonists who chose freedom over safety. The new ships were bigger and better protected than the Liberty. But more importantly, they carried the spirit of people who had proven that humans would not be caged, threatened, or controlled by anyone. As the ships launched toward the stars, their crews carried a message for any aliens they might encounter. Humanity had been tested by the greatest military force in the galaxy, and humanity had stood tall. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humans decided to reach for the stars, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same again.